a sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest. NDTV at Mahakumbh 2025.
We are able to maintain the democratic fabric and the democratic system.
I want to do something that can make a difference.
लगातार जनता की आवाज को सरकार तक पहुंचाने का काम मैं करता हूं.
I was a student up until very recently. I really want to work and do something for my people because they have given me this opportunity. They have elected me.
सोचा नहीं था कि राज्यसभा सांसद बनूंगी.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions.
You are watching the World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bava. Let's begin with the top stories you need to know this morning. Canadian Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, long Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's most powerful minister, announced she was resigning in a shock resignation from the cabinet as Trudeau deals with declining popularity. 11 Indian citizens were found dead at a restaurant in a mountain resort in Georgia. Local media, citing police sources, is reporting that carbon monoxide poisoning caused all the deaths. Ousted Syrian leader Bashar Assad said he had no plans to leave the country after the fall of Damascus a week ago, but the Russian military evacuated him after their base in western Syria came under attack. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz overwhelmingly lost a parliamentary vote of confidence, setting the stage for February elections in Germany. And no immunity for Donald Trump in the hush money case. Trump loses the bid as Juan Merchant rules. Well, our big focus, Canada's finance minister abruptly quit, dealing a blow to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government as it prepares to actually respond to Donald Trump's tariff threats. Chrystia Freeland, who was also Deputy Prime Minister and a staunch Trudeau ally, criticized his fiscal policies in a scathing resignation letter and called for pushing back against America First economic nationalism. Freeland was actually seen as a potential Trudeau successor, but some political analysts now argue that her resignation has thrown Canada's economic agenda into a tailspin. My colleague Maha Siddiqui joins us with a lowdown from Vancouver.
In a faux pas and an ill-timed move, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's decision to shuffle Chrystia Freeland out of the finance ministry has only further exacerbated his political troubles. This is because the Deputy Prime Minister and the Finance Minister Freeland decided to resign from the cabinet just hours ahead of delivering a fall economic statement that would have also addressed concerns around Donald Trump's tariff threats against Canada. In a letter to the Prime Minister that was also available on social media, Freeland said that the Canadian Prime Minister, that is Justin Trudeau, asked her to step aside as the Finance Minister and that he would have reassigned a ministry to her, but she chose to resign from the cabinet instead, though she still remains a Liberal MP. So what could this mean for the Trudeau government that's already in minority? First of all, the lack of confidence by a minister, and that too the second in command, does nothing for the leadership of Justin Trudeau that has already been called into question. There has already been a clamour for the change in leadership of the Liberal Party, and this could further add fuel to the fire. Moreover, if this translates into the NDP and Bloc Québécois that are supporting the government, the minority government, on a case-by-case in Parliament, this could mean that there could be elections earlier on in Canada. And that would not augur well either for Justin Trudeau or for the Liberal Party, because they continue to remain hugely unpopular with the inflation and the housing crisis in Canada. Though the Justin Trudeau government has tried to put in some measures that are being called as populist by some commentators, which is the GST holiday, as well as the $250 check that will go out to the working people over New Year's, this has been one of the bone of contentions between Freeland and Justin Trudeau that has resulted in the resignation of Freeland, who believes that fiscal prudence is required at this juncture by Canada rather than political gimmicks to be able to counter the threat from Donald Trump.
The other big story we're tracking, a tragic incident has unfolded at a restaurant in a popular mountain resort in Georgia, where 11 Indian citizens have been confirmed dead by the Indian mission. Authorities say the victims, all employees of the same restaurant, were found in their bedrooms on the second floor of the establishment, and Georgia's Ministry of Internal Affairs, they report that an initial examination found no visible signs of injury or violence. However, local media sources citing police suggest that carbon monoxide poisoning is the likely cause of death. Reports indicate that a power generator was installed in an indoor enclosed space near the sleeping quarters and may have been activated following a power outage on Friday evening. But investigators are currently focusing on this as a possible cause. But local authorities have launched an investigation into the deaths, citing negligent manslaughter under Georgia's criminal code. This investigation is ongoing, and we will continue to bring you updates as more details emerge from Georgia. Meanwhile, Sri Lankan President Anura Kumara Dissanayake assured New Delhi that Sri Lanka's territory will not be used in any way that could harm India's interests. The President gave this assurance following talks with our Prime Minister in New Delhi, and the assurance comes in the backdrop of India raising objections with Colombo back in 2022 for actually allowing a Chinese research vessel to dock at Hambantota port. Here's a recap of all the major developments for you.
In his first foreign visit, the newly elected Sri Lankan President Anura Kumara Dissanayake assured India that its territory won't be used for terrorism.
कि फिजिकल, डिजिटल और एनर्जी कनेक्टिविटी हमारी भागीदारी के अहम स्तंभ होंगे। दोनों देशों के बीच इलेक्ट्रिसिटी ग्रिड कनेक्टिविटी और मल्टी प्रोडक्ट पेट्रोलियम पाइपलाइन स्थापित करने पर काम किया जाएगा।
This came at a time when China is looking to expand its influence in Indian Ocean region. Chinese missile tracking ships and warships have been docking at different ports in Sri Lanka. During the bilateral meeting, Prime Minister spoke about civilizational connect between India and Sri Lanka and shared how India is going to invest in public-centric projects.
I have always also given an assurance to the Prime Minister of India that we will not allow our land to be used in any way in a manner that is detrimental to the interest of India.
The Prime Minister also reminded the Sri Lankan President about the critical issue of Tamil minorities in the country and asked him for full implementation of the Constitution.
हमने श्रीलंका में रिकंस्ट्रक्शन और रिकंसिलिएशन पर भी बात की। राष्ट्रपति दिसानायक ने अपने समावेशी दृष्टिकोण के बारे में मुझे बताया। हम आशा करते हैं कि श्रीलंका सरकार तमिलों की आकांक्षाओं को पूरा करेगी और श्रीलंका के संविधान के पूर्ण इम्प्लीमेंटेशन और प्रोविंशियल काउंसिल इलेक्शन कराने की अपनी प्रतिबद्धता को पूरा करेगी।
Prime Minister's statement on Tamil minorities assumes significance as India has been raising issues on the state of minorities in Bangladesh. With a new government in office, India is looking for a long-term investment and people-centric diplomacy in Sri Lanka. With Mohammad Ghazali, Bureau Report, NDTV.
Thank you for your presence, ladies and gentlemen.
In other news, in a significant development from Syria, former President Bashar al-Assad has issued his first statement since being toppled from power. Assad revealed that he was evacuated to Russia on the 8th of December as it came under a drone attack. He's actually explained that he had left Damascus that morning as rebel fighters led by the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham advanced on the capital. But Assad's written statement dated the 16th of December was actually published on the Syrian presidency's Telegram channel, and it confirms that he has been granted asylum in Moscow, where he currently resides. As we've been covering, Assad was ousted after insurgent forces launched a swift offensive, ultimately ending over 50 years of the Assad family's iron-fisted rule in Syria. My colleague Mohammad Ghazali has been tracking all the latest developments for us. He joins us live at the moment. Ghazali, what are the latest details you can disclose?
See, Parmeshwar, this statement is very similar to how we have seen what happened with Afghanistan president when Taliban had approached and made the advancement in Afghanistan, toppling his government there. Similar thing happened when Sheikh Hasina's regime change happened, when she was ousted from Bangladesh. And in a similar fashion, Bashar al-Assad, who is right now in Russia, has issued this statement on a Telegram channel named Syrian Presidency. Now, we don't know the authenticity of it, whether he sort of wrote that statement or who on his behalf wrote that statement. But there are some key points which he mentioned was that he was not forced to leave. Rather, he didn't flee from Syria in a kind of an attempt of face saving there too. And it was addressed to his supporters there in Syria, his army and his Alawite supporters there, that he didn't leave Syria in a kind of adverse situation. He is not somebody who will run from the battlefield, is what he was sending a message through this statement, that things went from bad to worse. Army started deserting positions and locations in Syria, and that is when his allies, the Russians, suggested him that he should be airlifted from there. And then he again raises the issue of Palestine and Lebanon, because that has become the central stage of this entire development in Syria, because al-Shara or al-Julani, who is the head of the HTS, who is right now in power or sort of running the government or interim government there, his position towards Israel, towards the Palestinian cause is making all the headlines. And perhaps to counter that, Assad says that a person who stood with the cause of Palestine and Lebanon would not have left his own people in such a crisis situation. So it is an attempt for face saving as well, to address his supporters as well. We don't know about his fate yet, that what will be his next move, because he's been in exile now, because Syria has now fallen to rebels, and Assad keeps referring them in his statement as terrorists. So in a way, when the Western powers or the Western countries are trying to establish communication or back-channel talks with the rebel forces there, Assad holds his ground by terming them as terrorists, and yet tries to align himself with the Arab cause of Palestine by saying that he stood for the cause of Palestine and attacks on Lebanon by Israel, and hence he's not somebody who's a coward who will leave the battlefield.
Right. Thanks so much, Ghazali, for joining us with that update. Switching tracks, residents of Mayotte have spoken of apocalyptic scenes caused by the worst storm in 90 years to hit the French Indian Ocean territory. Cyclone Trudeau brought wind speeds of more than 225 kilometers per hour, flattening areas where the poorest lived in sheet metal roof shacks. Authorities say they are having difficulty establishing the number of deaths due to the large number of undocumented migrants, which is over 1 lakh in a population of 320,000 there. John Lester from the Associated Press has further details for us.
France is scrambling to deal with an unfolding disaster in one of its remotest and poorest of regions, the Indian Ocean archipelago of Mayotte. The most destructive cyclone in nearly 1 century has thumped Mayotte's 2 islands this past weekend. The winds of more than 130 miles per hour or 220 kilometers per hour laid entire neighborhoods to waste, especially poor slums. Roofs of thin metal sheet became as deadly as flying blades as they were ripped apart and took off into the winds. French authorities say they're bracing for hundreds and perhaps even thousands of dead. But there may never be a full accounting of the death toll because many of the migrants who live on the islands are undocumented, and also because of local Muslim traditions which require rapid burials when people die. French authorities are scrambling to rush aid to the population of about 300,000 on Mayotte, but damage to the airport is complicating the arrival of flights bringing emergency workers and essential supplies. In the tropical Indian Ocean climate, one of the most pressing needs amid the scenes of devastation is providing clean water for survivors who've been left with little or nothing.
With that, let's get you a quick update from Germany now, where Chancellor Olaf Scholz overwhelmingly lost a parliamentary vote of confidence, setting the stage for elections in February. In fact, the unpopular centre-right leader called for the vote, which he was expected to lose after his three-party coalition collapsed last month. The calculus is that triggering an election 7 months early may be his best chance of political survival, but Germany is beset with other challenges. Its industrial export-heavy economy is struggling to compete with China, and its GDP is forecast to shrink this year. At a moment when Europe is especially in need of a strong leader, in need of strong leadership, the world's fourth largest economy is on a path of decline that threatens to actually become irreversible, as many experts have said on record. While switching tracks, several of the papers in the UK lead on the alleged Chinese spy linked to the Duke of York, Prince Andrew. In fact, the Daily Telegraph says the anonymous businessman helped an elite British private school expand to China. The Daily Mail is reporting that alongside royals and prime ministers, he also mixed with captains of industry. It demands he must be named, but The Guardian is reporting and saying the court order protecting his identity may be lifted, while The Independent in Britain says ministers are facing calls to take a tough stance against any interference from Beijing. By the way, UK's Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said he is concerned about the challenge China poses in his first comments on the alleged spy with links to Prince Andrew, who has been barred from the UK. He also added that there is a long-standing convention in the United Kingdom that talks between Downing Street and the royal family are never spoken about. Prince Andrew should be commended for doing Britain a great service, according to long-standing China watcher Charles Parton, though. The now marginalized royal, has the analyst observed, almost single-handedly succeeded in highlighting the threat to free and open countries posed by the contemporary Chinese state. In fact, we have a reaction from China as well. China has clearly said in its statement that they have never engaged in deception of interference. Listen in.
中国行事一向堂堂正正、光明磊落，从不搞什么欺骗、干涉。对这种以己夺人的无端炒作，不值一驳。
Meanwhile, in a significant diplomatic move, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval is expected to visit China in the coming weeks to continue discussions on the long-standing border dispute between the two countries. Sources say the visit will focus on addressing issues related to the line of actual control following the recent disengagement of our forces. But the two sides are currently working to finalize the dates for the visit, with NSA Doval likely heading to Beijing for talks under the Special Representative's mechanism on the border issue. The visit could take place either by the end of this year or in early January, according to our sources. As always, news and updates continue on the other side of this very short break. Don't go anywhere.
NDTV shines with 38 prestigious wins at the News Television Awards 2024. Powerful journalism to cutting-edge digital innovation, production excellence to regional leadership. NDTV sets the benchmark. 38 awards, each a testament to your trust in NDTV. NDTV stands for trust. NDTV proudly upholds its legacy of trust and credibility. According to the prestigious Reuters Institute's Digital News Report 2024, NDTV is the top-most news platform in the country. Number 1 in both online and offline reach in India. Beating all its competition, NDTV stands for trust.
New day, new show, a new experience. Start your day with the news, not views. We bring you stories that matter and impact your lives. News that informs and keeps you ahead. From Maximum City, Mumbai, to the seat of governance, Delhi, NDTV brings to you the best breakfast show. The breakfast show only on NDTV 24/7 every morning at 8 a.m. Mahakumbh, a festival of faith, the world's biggest spiritual festival. The divine dip at the spiritual Sangam, a sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest. NDTV at Mahakumbh 2025.
We are able to maintain the democratic fabric and the democratic system.
I want to do something that can make a difference.
लगातार जनता की आवाज को सरकार तक पहुंचाने का काम मैं करता हूं.
I was a student up until very recently. I really want to work and do something for my people because they have given me this opportunity. They have elected me.
सोचा नहीं था कि राज्यसभा सांसद बनूंगी.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here. NDTV shines with 38 prestigious wins at the News Television Awards 2024. Powerful journalism to cutting edge.
Welcome back. Let's get you a quick update from the United States now. A teenage student opened fire at the Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin, killing a teacher and another teenage student in the final week before Christmas break. The shooter also died, this is what police has confirmed, but 6 students were injured, including 2 who suffered life-threatening injuries. We can also disclose right now that the shooting was confined to one space, but it's unclear if it was in a classroom or a hallway. But the Madison police chief has so far declined to identify the attacker or their gender. However, US media reports say the attacker is a 17-year-old female. Meanwhile, Donald Trump does not have immunity from prosecution for the hush money case in which he was convicted of fraud earlier this year. This is what a New York judge has ruled. Lawyers for the US president-elect argued that the case should be thrown out after the Supreme Court ruled in July that Trump could not be prosecuted for official actions that were carried out as president. However, Judge Juan Merchan has sided with prosecutors who argued that the decision had no bearing on the conviction. Well, let's turn our attention to Shanghai officials' rare visit to Taiwan now. Chinese officials made a rare trip to Taiwan at a particularly tense moment in the island's relations with Beijing. A deputy Shanghai mayor led the delegation for the city-to-city forum in Taipei, whose own mayor belongs to a Taiwanese party that favors closer ties to the mainland. The visit actually comes after China unexpectedly launched its largest naval deployment around the island in decades, and as Taiwan received a shipment of 38 US tanks. And finally, Chef Vikas Khanna added another feather in his cap by winning a Michelin award for his New York restaurant Bungalow. And Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and his partner Lawrence Sanchez recently dined there, so did Shah Rukh Khan and his family. But here's what Vikas Khanna told NDTV's Natasha Israni when she caught up with him.
You were just telling us before we started the interview about this week and this month being extremely special. So please tell us more about all the different honors that Bungalow has got and how you feel about them.
आपसे बात कर रहा हूँ honor one. I just feel के awards come and go. What you stand for as a purpose is more important. एक देसी लड़का देसी हेरिटेज रिप्रेजेंट कर रहा है, जिसको स्कूल में कहा गया था कि देसी खाना मत बनाओ, गोरों के नीचे काम करो, यही आपकी पहचान है. तो मेरे को लगता था कि एज अ ग्रैंडसन freedom fighters families and Amritsar and with that patriotism, I'm like, मैं एक वो कहते थे this dish was invented in Burgundy, ये ऐसे बनाओ. तो मैंने कहा वो किसी की दादी का खाना मैं क्यों बनाऊं, मेरे को अपना खाना बनाना. I think that rebellious nature was the one which defined a lot of people, kids' choices of going to colleges. When I said कि वो तो नहीं कह रहे कि मैं अमृतसर की एक दादी का खाना बनाना सीखना चाहता हूँ. I'm going to learn that. They are representing themselves. हमें इतनी ज़्यादा क्यों validation की ज़रूरत है कि हमको उनको represent करना. I stand here with pride, with my own country, with my own anthem, with my own flag with me, with my own heritage, my own history. कहीं से मेरी कोई चीज़ भी है वो मैं नहीं कह सकता कि मुझे वैलिडेशन की ज़रूरत थी तभी मैं फ्रेंच का वर्ड मैंने ऐड किया बीच में. मुझे नहीं ज़रूरत है, मेरे को नहीं, इंडिया को नहीं ज़रूरत. जब एक इतना गहरा कल्चर होता है हमें नहीं ज़रूरत है कि दिस इज़ ऑल हैपनिंग ऑन वॉट एवर हैपन दिस वीक, इट हैपन ऑन इट्स ओन टर्म्स. It's much bigger than changing accents and changing your cuisine so that you fit into a different culture. We need to get people to fit into our culture. That's what the West did to us. We need to be so proud of it that they feel proud कि भाई we are having something so pure and authentic.
And with so much of history to it.
इससे ज़्यादा history कहाँ पे है मुझे बताओ. इससे ज़्यादा एक डिश को पकड़ो आप, by God कि कितनी हिस्ट्री है उस मसाले में जो उसमें जाता है, जो खाना बन रहा है उसकी तासीर क्या है, उसकी टेम्परेचर्स पे क्या है, उसकी एंड इट्स सच अ टेक्निकल क्यूजीन. इतनी टेक्निकल खाना है देसी खाना हमारा. एंड मुझे तो लगता नहीं कुछ उसके साथ कुछ मैच भी करता है. और क्यों हमें फोर्स किया जाता है कि फ्रेंच बेकरी सब खोलो और सब फ्रेंच खाना बनाओ. क्यों? वाई कांट वी रीडिफाइन द हलवाई कल्चर ऑफ इंडिया?
And do you think now it's changing? And thanks to you also and the example that you're set, because now maybe an Indian boy, an Indian girl, telling their parent that they want to become a chef is not going to be faced with as many questions as you might have faced.
वो तो फ़र्क पड़ा because of Master Chef's influence. वो तो देखा हमने कि पिछले 15 साल से होस्ट कर रहा हूँ almost मैं वो शो, and it's been a privilege, absolute privilege, that you can enter every home into the deeper sides of the villages. कि बिल्कुल ही रिमोट जगह पे आपकी आवाज़ पहुंचती है कंट्री में. वो बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है कि आप बोलते क्या हैं, कि आप उनको क्या मैसेज दे रहे हैं, कि यू नीड टू बी प्राउड एंड लाउड अबाउट योर हेरिटेज.
Comes to books, you don't stick to any one genre. It's fiction, children's books, non-fiction, all kinds of books. So you lead a very creative life, and I want to know, why is writing so important to you, and so much of writing?
मैंने पापा को 50 बुक्स का प्रॉमिस किया था. आई होप आई कीप इट. क्योंकि मैं अच्छा बोलता नहीं हूँ. मुझे इंग्लिश से बहुत दिक्कत थी बहुत साल तक. तो मुझे एक्सप्रेस तो करना था अपने आप को. तो द ओनली फाइंडिंग अ चैनल फॉर दैट, राइटिंग बिकेम अ चैनल फॉर दैट. लिखना शुरू किया मैंने, कहानियाँ लिखनी शुरू की, फिक्शन लिखनी शुरू की. आप कोई भी मेरी कुक बुक उठाएंगे, हेड नोट्स में आपको पूरी कहानी मिलेगी क्यों ये डिश है.
As always, thank you so much for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7. We'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.
NDTV proudly upholds its legacy of trust and credibility. According to the prestigious Reuters Institute's Digital News Report 2024, NDTV is the top-most news platform in the country. Number 1 in both online and offline reach in India. Beating all its competition, NDTV stands for trust.
New day, new show, a new experience. Start your day with the news, not views. We bring you stories that matter and impact your lives. News that informs and keeps you ahead.